Welcome back. Apologize for the lighting conditions where the lights shine on my glasses. I hope that you can ignore that and zero in on the message that I'm bringing to you, because the situation is really dire at this point. Now, this is part 3. I hope that you'll watch part 1 and part 2. I'm just going to assume that you already know what we talked about in part 1 and 2. In part 2, we were speaking about Hezekiah, how he removed the high places, or that is the sites of idolatry, the practical places of idolatry, and he smashed the snake on the stick that they had turned into an idol. And I want to speak more about the snake on a stick. Again, it's not the same thing. This snake on a stick that Moses had, the bronze serpent on the staff, was a representation of Christ, and it represented cursing the serpent, and defanging the serpent, taking away the sting of death and replacing it with resurrection. However, this okay, it's not the same snake. This snake is being milked into the chalice. Ancient medicine and modern medicine are based on poisoning. They're based on antibiotics, right? I take antibiotics. You take grain amounts of poisonous plants and use them medicinally to kill the germs and microbes or whatever is troubling you. But I want to focus now on the occult or idolatrous connections. This is Hermes or Mercury. Okay, Mercury. Notice he's holding in his hand the Caduceus. That is the symbol for androgyny, or the symbol for hermaphrodite. Hermes, the other name for Mercury, had a child with Aphrodite, and that child was a hermaphrodite. That's where we get the word. The name of the child is Hermaphrodite. And the scepter that Hermes carries is that symbol of androgyny, or symbol of hermaphroditism. It's also the modern medical symbol that you see everywhere, where you have the double helixed snakes climbing up the rod. Again, who is Hermes or Mercury? Well, Mercury, again, is the favorite ingredient from alchemists all the way up to the present. I mean, I have a bottle of mercurochrome and a bottle of merthiolate. Okay, Mercury is a typical poison that's fascinated alchemists and scientists throughout time, and they've only recently stopped taking it out of products. But anyways, Mercury is a Greek god. Hermes is a Greek god. It's a paganism. It's an idolatrous thing. What I'm saying is there's deep. Once again, here is Baphomet. Notice the Caduceus is his body organ. Represents dual sex, and this, of course, is a Luciferian worship symbol, as well as a symbol of various cults and paganistic type of practices. Okay, so there's a deep connection there. Now let me just take you in the Bible to Revelation in chapter 23. No, I'm sorry, yeah. 20. There is no chapter 23, is there? Revelation 18 speaks of Babylon the Great. Okay, and Babylon is the woman who rides the beast. She is not the beast itself. That's a very important thing to understand. In verse 23, we have chapter 18 of Revelation speaks about the bringing down, or the triumph of God and the throwing down of the Babylon. And it says, the lamp of a light will never shine in you again. The voice of bridegroom and bride will never be heard in you again. Your merchants were the world's great men, and by your magic spell all the nations were led astray. And that word magic spell is normally rendered sorcery. And the term underlying that, the Greek term, is pharmakeia, which again, it's the same word we get pharmacy from. Witchcraft means to be controlled or manipulated. The word witchcraft, the word pharmakeia, is translated as witchcraft in the works of the flesh. A person can become, drug addiction, or is coming under the control of drugs, or so that's rendered as witchcraft. Whereas this is normally rendered sorcery. Sorcery means to control through drugs, to manipulate or control others using drugs. So here you see that the heart of this Babylon system is merchants who were great men who are deceiving the nations by their pharmakeia, or their sorcery. They're putting a spell on the by your magic spell all the nations were led astray. In her was found the blood of prophets and of the saints and all who have been killed on the earth. But it's important again to realize that these people are not the beast. This is not the mark of the beast. Okay, this is bringing the nations under deception, or that is to say, the nations are being. The Babylon system will bring the nations under deception using merchandising by the great men of the earth of pharmakeia. So that's enough said about that. Now let's go back to where we were in 2 Kings and chapter 18 to 20. Again, Hezekiah broke down the high places, and he smashed that snake pole, and he trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel, and there was no one like him among the kings of Judah, either before him or after him. He held fast to the Lord and did not cease to follow him. He kept the commands of the Lord God had given Moses. The Lord had given Moses. The Lord was with him, and he was successful in whatever he undertook. He rebelled against the king of Assyria. It did not serve him again. Assyria was the world-ruling power at the time. This would be comparable to the governor of Florida refusing to go along and resisting stuff, and then the feds coming in and going, no, we're going to fine you. So then he pays the fine, and because in this case he paid the fine by taking it out of the house of God, in other words, taking his trust out of God and putting it into men, putting his fear of man above his fear of God, or his trust of God. Because of that, the king then marched on him with an army. It says, first of all, he took all his. He'd already captured some cities. Then he came up to him with a great army. And he said, if you say to me, we are depending on the Lord our God, isn't he the one whose high places and altars Hezekiah removed, saying to Judah and Jerusalem, you must worship before this altar in Jerusalem? So in the eyes of this pagan ruler, the people of Judah have made a mistake by forsaking their gods, but what they actually did was get rid of the idolatrous God and begin to trust in the living God. However, the people that were not trusting in the living God, the people of Israel, as we read last time, were carried into captivity by Assyria already. They're already captured, and the people of God are surrounded. It says, the captain said, "Has any god of any nation ever delivered his hand from the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Harpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim and Hena and Eva? Have they rescued Samaria from my hand? Who of the gods of these countries has been able to save this land from me? How then can the Lord deliver Jerusalem from my hand?" When King Hezekiah heard this, he tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and went into the temple of the Lord. He sent Eliakim, the palace administrator, Shebna, the secretary, and the leading priests, all wearing sackcloth, to the prophet Isaiah, son of Amoz. This is where we are. I'm telling you, our enemy has gamed this whole thing out. They already know people are there's going to be voices not on the mainstream, because the mainstream is totally captured. The schools are captured. The governments are captured. The military is captured globally. They're coming for the kids already right now. Okay, they've already said it's your job or else. Our back's against the wall, and resistance is futile. I'm just telling you, resistance is futile. They've already worked this thing out. They've got us in a snare. The only hope that we have at this point is that sackcloth. They understood that they were surrounded, laid siege to. The enemy has them cornered, but they're worshiping God, and they're doing right before God, but the enemy still has them. Enemy totally has them snared. I'm telling you, saints, the enemy has us totally cornered, and our only hope in this hour is God alone. No amount of politicking, no amount of protesting in the streets, no amount of going along is going to save us from this situation. The only thing that's going to save us is that our enemy is mocking God, speaking against God, and we need to humble ourselves before God in sackcloth and ash and cry out to him with all our hearts. If God doesn't answer us, and if God doesn't come through for us in this hour, we're all done for. Part 4 coming later.